we're going to be discussing building escape rooms and using locks. We're going to actually be using Google Form to do this, but you can use nearly any form builder to complete this. The big things that you will need when it comes to having a form builder that is usable for this is it just needs to be able to have multiple pages or sections, and you need to be able to have control over which direction the players go depending on what question or how they answer questions. So quiz builders will also be usable. I think about the only thing that's not really is surveys. They're a hit or survey softwares are a hit or miss on whether or not they will be useful for this. All right, so who am I? I am Emily Davis, one the research and instruction librarians. My focus mostly is health and social sciences. I do also Adobe and the creative design stuff, and I do instructional design and teaching methods. So one of my passions is using escape rooms, not just for fun, although I do create them for my gaming group so that they can, have fun, but I also create them for educational purposes, and I work with faculty members to create escape rooms that are designed for whatever course or assignment they have going on. You can contact me via etmu.edu/askwaters, or rather you can contact all the librarians if you wish to contact me specifically to discuss whatever it may be, or you want to see how to apply these tools and stuff to your actual course that you're working on, or for a specific assignment that you're working on, or maybe you already have an escape room but you want to look into how can you improve it and what other ways and things that you may not see. I'm more than happy to set up a consultation where we look at your actual escape room that you've already created or you have started creating, and we look into making it anywhere from just more engaging to more accessible. All right. So what my suggestion is if you're going to use Google, have a folder specifically for whichever escape room you're going to have. In this folder, you're going to have notes that you take. You'll have the answer keys. You'll actually have the actual escape room itself. I would suggest starting out with something like a template. So I have an example that I have recently done for one of our nursing courses here at the campus. I have removed all answers and put in like random stuff so that if anyone is actually currently participating in this does not actually give them the answers. And but it does have the storyline that they're working on, and you can go through from here. It just kind of keeps things organized. If you rather just having a Word document and just have everything out on the Word document, that works too. This is just one of the organization techniques that I use, and it works very well with having the steps out and design. But the key point is you're going to need this section right here with locks, so you know how many locks you're going to do, what the main topic of each lock is, and of course the answer. You don't necessarily at the beginning need to have your answers. Those can come down later. You just kind of need to have an outline of what it is you're wanting to do so that you can build the foundation of your escape room. Instead of using a template organization like this, you can do something more along the lines of this, where you have everything kind of just however organized. You can do a Word document. We do suggest if you're going to have any puzzles or encryptions, I would definitely have an Excel sheet that has your keys to it. Again, these numbers and everything have been adjusted, but they are based on the one I've created for the nursing program. You can have the code here, and then of course your breaker, and then so that you don't have to actually sit there and think about, all right, well, which letter means what. You have it where you can just plug in the letters and it will tell you what needs to go there in order to do it. Now, there are resources online that will actually encrypt these things for you, but this is just something that's simple, easy to do with, especially on your very first escape room. I would suggest trying to keep it as simple as possible, and as much fun as it is to add in all the neat little tricks and the red herrings and just deep dive into all those fun things that you can put in. As your first escape room, I would strongly suggest starting out with the basics, because as the more things you put in it, the longer it's going to take for players to complete it, the more it's going to take for you to complete it, even if you have the foundation starting. Also, the more time it's going to take you to check and verify everything, because with this being a digital escape room, you have more links and more chances for things to break without you being aware of it. And this also means that you'll have to review it and take more time reviewing it, although you should review it regardless of whatever link you have. And I would always suggest having other people who are not playing the game review it, make sure everything fits the way it's supposed to. I would suggest having some that play it without the answers, and so that they can test to see whether or not the answers make sense, or the questions and locks and puzzles, they all make sense, and the player will naturally be able to answer them in a reasonable time frame if they have the correct course content, if you're doing it course based, or if you're doing it at topic based. Either way, they'll have the correct background information in order to complete the questions or blocks. So having individuals who review it strictly for mechanics and maybe even grammar issues to make sure that all of the links work, the questions are working and answering right. This is another reason to go ahead and start out on a smaller scale before you get to the larger ones, or the more complicated ones. The more detailed, there we go, more detailed ones. So having a code breaker, having your notes, keeping those all in an area, and of course having an outline of going through, and it just makes things a lot easier. When you start creating your escape room, a couple of things you need to note is that you need to know your scenario. This is going to help you determine what locks you need. So if you have a scenario, this one uses nursing, but let's say we have a scenario where we're going to do something based on library and research. We want the students to be familiar with what research tools they have or access to in the library. So we come up with a scenario that you're a student, or the player is a student who is working on their research assignment, and they end up getting stuck in like a research loop, and it just deja vu Groundhog Day type situation. Well, now we have our scenario, we know what we need to focus on, and we can go from there. We know we don't want it to be too long, so let's just say it's 3 locks, and we can come down here and we can put 1, 2, 3 locks. So we can say the first one we're wanting to do is focus on, or we want the answer to be librarian. We want something to indicate that they're going to go to a librarian. You can do this the other way. You can actually go decide, you know what, I'd rather do riddle first. Don't really care what the answer is, but I want the riddle to be the first thing I do. So you can do either one first, and you just go from there. And so you got riddles. I have passcodes here, so that's going to be either a math problem or hidden numbers. We also have a hidden message that you can do. If you do a hidden message or a decoding message, I would strongly suggest using this as your last lock that you think the players are going to be playing with. With digital escape rooms, the simple basic escape room goes in a very linear fashion. They go from point A to point B to point C, but you do have the ability to make it where they can choose to go any direction, and it gives more autonomy to the players. Again, this takes longer to review, and I would strongly suggest it not necessarily being the very first one that you do until you have some experience with the software that you're using, or if you're working with someone who does have experience with the software. I'm not saying it's impossible, it's just going to take longer to complete. And if you're working on this, I would strongly suggest, if you're doing it for a course assignment and you're wanting to do one of those more complex ones, expect to be working on it for at least a month. So you just have that basic outline of getting started. You don't necessarily have to have all the answers to start with. You just really need to know what your scenario is and how many locks you're wanting to do. It is suggested that they will spend 5 to 10 minutes per lock. So if you want a 30-minute game, or you want a game not to go any further than 30 minutes, keep it under 3, maybe 4 locks. But 5 is pushing it depending on what type of lock you use, whether or not it's a simple question such as a riddle answer, or if it's going to have multiple steps where they have to find all the different pieces of the riddle. So the extent of how far you're going to go will also tell in how many locks. Now that I have discussed that part, we're going to create one. I do have multiple ones that are created, and if we have time at the end, I'll kind of show you what the complex ones can look like. But for today, I'm just going to show the simple basic escape room. So with Google, you'll be in a Google Drive. You can go to New, and then you'll click on Google Forms. In this section right here, of course, you're going to give it a name. You can name it whatever you want. So the next thing, description of it or instructions, and then you can come over here and add a text box. You don't have to give a description, but you can do a text box and a image. If you want to do images, I would suggest starting out with, and before you put the images together, maybe not necessarily have all the images together just yet. Construction cone. This way you can get a framework and you know, hey, I need to come back and actually put the image here, but my focus right now is to get the framework of my lock ready. And so this is them getting started. Go ahead and delete that lock, or not lock that question. So this is going to head again, instruction or scenario. I'm hoping I'm spelling everything really well. So text box, you type in the scenario, give an image. If you want the image, do remember that when it comes to accessibility, that if you are using images, make sure you have your alt images on. If you're using something like jigsaw puzzles and other things that have a very heavy visual component, do be aware of whatever the audience that you're going to be having playing this game, because jigsaw puzzles aren't necessarily the most accessible. So you will either need to choose a different type of puzzle, whether it be a basic question, riddle, hidden messages, whatever the case may be. You may need to choose a different type instead of using jigsaw puzzles, or have some alternative formats. You could do an entire escape room solely text-based, which I have done a couple of those as well. These forms can also be linked to different websites. So if you want to create an escape room that you share the links to, and they can go to the different websites, and then whatever is in that website, that is what is used for them in order to escape. So forth, they can get like hints and stuff on the website. That's a route to kind of go around that. That way you're not having to come up with all the images, and instead you can have all of that portion of the work done with on someone else. Again, it really depends on what your scenario is. We're going to go ahead and add a section. You have this section. This section 1 is just the introduction. It's going to cover the scenario. It's going to cover, like, if players have any questions or they're having technology issues, what to do in order to circumvent all of that. All of those are going to be in this section. And as I said, this is going to be where you'll have the scenario. You do not have to have the scenario available for players, but it does help. It also gives them a reason and an idea of where they're going with it. Scenarios really work better if the players are playing a particular character. So so it's not just a reason for being here, it's also like, which direction are they going to come from this? So for instance, are they a doctor who is in a particular setting, or sorry, no, they're a professional in a particular setting, such as a nurse, a student, a scientist, a musician major, or are they a fictional character or a historical character if you're in like the humanities class? So this can really be designed for any subject, but having them come from the direction of they are a character that is meant to be in that space. And then, so that first part's just going to be all the instructions and everything. And then your next spot, which is really nice with Google, if you really want to, this would be the part where you could possibly start adding in different avenues if you want to be a little bit more complex with it and you want to give more autonomy back to your players. You can add a question here and then give them different options. Something along the lines of which path do you take? And then you can have option 1, option 2, option 3. So let's say they go to coffee shop, and we are not in England, so we're not putting that in an extra P and E on there. And they go to the dorm, if it is the students, or they go to the library, and you have all of those options set up. You can make it where it is required so they can't move forward any further. And then if you click these little dots here, you can go to different sections based on answer. Again, you have to have all your questions, all your sections set up. And that's going to mean that you're going to have multiple pathways for the players to go. And if you're going to go that route and you're going to add in those multiple pathways, you do need to have some type of organization, such as the this particular format that I have right here, where it's talking about the different steps. So we can have these different steps per section that they do, or just a Word document that has the different steps listed. If you were going to do a escape room, I'm gonna go back here. So if you're going to do an escape room like in person, you could do these on like index cards and have them written out, and you can see where the different pathways all connect to each other, and it makes a ball of string. So you have that option. I'm just going to leave it there for now. We're going to move on ahead to the next section. So this is going to be the section of where you're going to have your first lock. And then, you know what, I know there's going to be, we're going to do a total of 3 locks. So, oh, I don't need a question yet. I'm going to go ahead and add in another section. Okay, add in a question and then add a section. And then I know this is going to be our second lock. And I would suggest doing this at the very beginning. So before you move on, we're just going to add a question. And then this is going to be our third, our final lock. Then you can do as many locks as you want to. I would suggest keeping it anywhere from 30 to 45 minutes, so no more than 5 or 6 locks. You can also do just one, if you're doing this for educational purposes, you can have 1 lock per topic, or if you say you have a module and the module has 3 learning objectives to complete in that module, you can have 1 lock per learning objective, or you can have maybe 2 locks per learning objective. And that would be a escape room for that module. If you were going to do something more along the lines of a course-based escape room, maybe you're doing it for more of like a final overall assessment, so to speak, or study guide for the students, I would suggest having it separated where you have each section covers 1 topic, if you're going to do something as wide as that way, and then have the subjects linked to each other so that they have a reasonable flow of like how we got from point A to point B. But if you want to do a Alice in Wonderland remix and are jumping all over the place, go ahead. If that's you know, if that's your take and you want to do that aspect. If you're going to do something along that lines, I would say stick with more of choosing like a book or a particular like storyline fictional type way, just because in all honesty, it makes it easier to do it. But you can do the whole craziness if you want. This is completely up to you. There's a lot of creativity that can be built into this. So we have our final lock, and then you have one more section to add to this. And this section is, of course, the congratulations, you've successfully made it out section. And again, you can have your image. If you want an image on that page, I'm just going to put a construction cone for now. And I'll come back and show you how to do all that. But also on this one, you're going to have your survey. So add the questions, and you can have questions more of like getting their email address so that if you wanted to follow up on it, or some identifier if we want to keep things completely more anonymous, say, they can put in a secret number or secret word that indicates that, you know, the person who completed this has this grade, something like that. For submission purposes, you can do something along that lines. This is also a point where you can get some feedback from your players as to what aspects of the game did they like, did they not like, things like that, so that you have some ways to adjust. And again, you can make these required or not with the required button. It depends on how much you really want your players to have to do. I would keep this portion down to no more than 5 questions. And I'm going to go back up here. So I'm going to go up to our first place where we have the image so we can talk about some things. So we can have some hover text that we can put on it. We can choose which of the right or left alignment, center alignment. You can add in your image title. This is also a place where you can add in, what is it called? Like a description of it, a description of the image to make it a little bit more accessible. And then as far as the question here, we do have coffee shop, dorm, library is what we did. I could actually turn this to first lock, second lock, you know, like which direction, which lock are they going to try to unlock first if you're going to go that route. Other things that you can do with the forms in particular, finishing up. Is that if you come down to these little buttons here, you can add a description to this, give you more ideas, but you can also go to the sections based on answers. So then we can tell them like, okay, if you choose the coffee shop, you go to the first lock, you choose dorm, you go to the second. If you choose this one, you go to the third and final one. And then because you did this and we have it required, this part really doesn't, after section 1, doesn't really apply to anything. So we move down to section 2. So this is just a basic, which direction do you take type question. So there's no riddle, there's no pathway, no actual activity, mini activity for the students to do. So it's not considered a lock. Whereas we come down here, we can have multiple questions added if we want. Multiple questions added, we can have it where they're required to answer all the questions. And if we want to, we can have text added to here. I want text to be up here. And then, let's see, did I add, oh, that's title, not text. It would help if I had the right thing. Delete that. I'm down here to question. All right, so here we go. All right, so that's the title thing. Okay. So we have the question here. So we're going to put all of our information here in this section. And then we're going to have what options are they going to do? Is it going to be a checkbox? Is it going to be drop down? You know, what's what's going to be the sections section, what's going to be the question, how are they going to do what they're going to do. So you just, fill the questions as you go. And you can, of course, insert links into items. So you have a link to a particular page. Let's say it's the Waters library. There we go. And we're going to link it to Waters library. Why do I not have the Waters library up? Okay, we're going to link it to the Waters library. All right, so we have that here. And that would be a way for them to be able to have a hint or a resource. So we have our description here. Maybe the scenario is the student notices that there's a stack of books that have been knocked over, or any kind of thing to kind of bring their attention to a certain area that would make sense being in that area. Or you could even say, hey, there's something glowing on the wall, and that's the reason why they're going over there. They're going to glow if there's a glow on the wall. They walk over to it, they notice that there is a riddle on there. So you notice a poster glowing. And this is where you could put an image here just to kind of add a more more visual and aesthetic image. And of course, the image would be more a decorative purpose because you're going to write out glowing with text. And of course, you would make it prettier. You would have the actual writing on there, not writing, you would have grammar done, full sentences done, but you could have the text that reads this statement, and then of course have a link somewhere to the maybe the library's webpage so that they could maybe get a clue. In this case, the answer is actually means librarian. So if they were to answer it, we can give them check boxes, multiple choice. We're going to just say short answer and do a response validation. Short answer has to be a text. It must contain librarian, and hopefully you spell things right. And of course, you can give a response of, like, if it's incorrect, say, sorry, try again, or, whatever text you want to use. And then based on that question, we can actually send them to somewhere else. Or we can have them go to, not a question, did not mean to hit that button. I meant to hit the section button. So we can have them, all right, let's say they get it correctly. They say a librarian, and then we have a question that says, and maybe in this case, we want them to actually go to the research help desk, because that's, where librarians can be found. Research help desk, or you can have other options, and then required it. Multiple choice. And it's required. And then you can have it where you have shuffle the options, go to sections based on it. So we have continue to the next section, whatever section. And you could have a question here that says, nope, sorry, that's incorrect. You're going to go back to and it links back and just do a complete loop. Again, adding these extra things where you add loops and you add all these different pathways, it can make it more engaging, but it's also going to cause you to have more time to, it's going to cause you to spend more time actually working on it, which is not an issue unless you're on a time crunch on having to get this done. So you do different options. Let's say this continues to, they go to the research help desk. This sends them to the second lock. And then the rest of them, we're just going to send them for now to the submit form. And they go to the second lock. And the second lock, they have your description here. Second lock's like, yay, you made it. And when they make it to the research help desk, let's say there is another glowing poster. How did I do it? Okay. Another glowing poster. And then they notice a number on it. Let's say they notice, let me go to my key here. So this is where I'm going to bring in the encryption into it. So we notice that we have, maybe there is a C and it says 45 on it. C45. Something that's just a little hint, may not have any real notice. C45, and you could do C45, you could have a quote, something that would help them break a cipher. And then, that's kind of where they get the cipher, breaking the cipher. That's where they're going to get a hint on how to break the cipher. And then you add your questions, you continue going. So we have the cipher in here, and this part we have, they search around the room, maybe they speak to the librarian, or maybe they see a sign at the research help desk that says, hey, librarian has stepped away. Maybe that's the poster that's actually glowing. The librarian has stepped away. You'll have to contact them. And then maybe that portion that says, you'll have to contact them, maybe it's blurred out. Maybe for some reason, it's just a whole bunch of string of numbers. So at this point, they're going to have to either kind of think about, okay, where else would we, or what else would we do in order to reach a librarian? And they could go, this would lead them, hopefully, would lead them back to the website where they can look at it like, okay, where else here can tell me to meet a librarian, book an appointment, ask a librarian, whatever direction it would go. And then you would have that as one of the options. Again, we have multiple things to do. We can do a scale, multiple choice grids, check boxes. There's all kinds of different ways that we can add in here and do puzzles and all those other wonderful fun things. And of course, we can just have it continue on to the next session. So we have the very last section, and then we add one more section, if I remember correctly on how to do this. Okay, nope, I did that wrong. Not this section. Let's delete that. My apologies. Okay, so we come into the question, we have add options, but it was there a while ago. There we go. Have it go where it just immediately goes to the submit form. Now it should immediately go to the submit form, even if it doesn't have it down there. But you could have it where if they answer a question wrong, and we have this as a more of a assessment of something of and I added a little bit more pressure. They answer a question wrong, and it maybe immediately goes over to the submit form, and they don't actually escape, and they're stuck in the forever research loop that it oftentimes feels like we are when it comes to research and the frustration that happens with it. But we have, these different options. When you're using just the form for a very basic design, it does, limit some of the things that you can do. But there is a way to expand on this. You can add and create a site that this is all based off on. And I'm going to go ahead and show you that way just so you can expand and actually use the jigsaw puzzle and use like hidden and invisible text and things of that aspect. In order to do that with Google, you can go to New and then you add Google Sites. Page title, this would be the same name of your escape room. Maybe you will have your course. You can also do this with some of the Adobe features, or you can have it as a page in your modular in your D2L modular, a WordPress, all kinds of different places that you have it. But the big thing is you can have this and then you can insert where is it at? Insert the form that we are working on that I have apparently not named yet. Yeah, it's not published. Let me go publish it up here. Anyone with the link. We're going to make it where only restricted people. All right, so only restricted people can view this right now. Publish this so we can work with it. All right. Let's try this again. So you would do this once you have the form for the most part complete and add it in here. Yes, I said insert. Let's insert. Okay, and then you would have it off to the side. So this would be where they would move through the scenario and questions. And if I were to actually view the screen, they could come through, answer the questions, moving to the next section. And again, I am still going to misspell the word librarian. And then it'll pop up. I misspelled it. So, oh no. And we're going to come up here and we're going to spell it correctly. And it is capitalization. It is caps sensitive, so be aware of that if you're using Google. You can actually put in a tip, trick, or whatever you're doing, all lowercase, all caps. And then you choose which direction we're going. And another glowing poster, so on and so forth as they move through. And I'm going to go and exit out of that. And then if you're doing this, you can have each section of the website, but another text box. All right, you can have your intro section. And then we can make a section, this would go up with your intro. And you would hopefully not have it that small. Okay. So intro section, this would be lock 1. So whatever, if you want to do a puzzle or maybe that more of the images, so you can have just your questions here and then you can have all your other designs here. Just gives you more leeway and more freedom to do things, embedding jigsaw puzzles and then lock 2. Now, I am one of the individuals that I like to have my foundation. So I'd come in, I would put where I'm going to have an image at. I'd put the little cone there in every section. And then just like I have over here where I have all the questions leading to the next section that they're needing to go to, I would have all that set up before I would actually start working on the site if I'm going to combine those two together. So I do want to show y'all an example of a completed one, because like I said, this is not something that you're going to be able to complete very simply in an hour. All right, so here's what one would look like completed. So this one is based off of the book, 7.5 Deaths of Evelyn Hardcastle. Now, the way this is created, this was for a book club one that we did. So the way this is created and based on is that you don't necessarily have to read the book, but it makes life easier. But you, as the creator of the game, can make it harder or easier as you want. So we have the locks that they're here. They have the questions and directions here. Tells them how many locks, and then gives them kind of an idea of what the locks are doing. So again, you have control over this entire part. This part is this section right up here in the description. And then they move on to the next section and they'll have to answer these different questions as they go through. Each of these questions relate to one here. So we have the title is Day 1, Hidden Item, and then come over here to Day 1. It gives information about it. I even have hints thrown in here. These are all things that is an option for you to do. The more things you put on here, the more time it's going to take and the more of a review process that you need to do. So make sure that your time of your effort into this is taken into account. And of course, this hidden image is not necessarily the most accessible item and process that you do. This is done with using Google Drawing. So I had an image in Google Drawing. There's a section on it that is used as a link. We're going to open it in a new window so that we can look at it. And then there is a link. I don't remember where the link is at, but there's a link somewhere in this page. Ah, there it is. Okay, so you don't, I apologize, you don't need to open it. I think that's actually on the hint that you don't need to open it. So they could just kind of scroll around here and figure out where they would hide something, and then they can click on it and it will take them to this lovely image. Now, again, this is just an image. It's not the most accessible when it comes to accessibility. So be aware of those alternative factors. You can make it where it goes instead to a Word document or, other things. And then they move on to to the second section. This one's actually a jigsaw puzzle. They would complete it. It would show something. They would come up here, and when it was on the next section, it's not going to let me go to the next section because it's all requirement. That's what that little asterisk there means. It's all required. So they'll go into the next section and then so on and so forth. So we have jigsaw puzzle. We have a hidden item that they would have to find. So those are lock 1 and 2. We have another one that is, again, a hidden item. There's a clue that hints it. It's over here to touch the bird. This takes him to this particular thing, or another image. Again, you could add the text instead of just being on the image. You could add the text here. Note there's a number down at the bottom that they would have to note. And it opens it up in a new window, so it's not the same window, so they can easily go back. We have one where they need to be able to read analog clocks and then figure out a pattern. So those are another option you could do. And of course, decoding, we have a hidden, another encryption down here. And then you can even do a maze and an image of a maze, or you have a maze-like question and they have to go through. And another chess related, scrambled words, and then credits down if you used multiple things. So that's what it can look like. This particular one took me about a month to do. Again, I had to read the actual book to do it. So do keep in mind that it took me a little bit over a month to do. Do keep in mind when you're doing all of these things that time is a factor. But of course, if you do come up with the questions or you want to see more details on how to do a particular software, maybe you're not wanting to use Google, maybe you're wanting to use something else, please reach out to me. I'm familiar with several different softwares and I have different tools I have different organization things that I can more than happy share that will be more targeted towards whatever topic or scenario you're wanting to work on. So please do contact me. We can do a Zoom chat or, in person, however you want. So if there's no questions for me, I will let y'all go and y'all will have a wonderful day.